Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We're giving the front pages of the papers this morning, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with old notes, don't extend February 10 deadline. Court tells federal government CBN. The rider says as Kogi, Kaduna, Zamfara drags federal government to Supreme Court. Group goes to court, seeks expiry date extension. 14 political parties threaten withdrawal from polls. You can also see a photo story showing EFCC monitoring ATMs. NIPC to slash Nigeria's appetite for borrowing. You can see that story on page 19. In aviation, we have FS surge 95% as Jet A1 scarcity bites harder. On sports, we have Nigerian footballer Hadid dies in Spain. Also, we have on health, we have 4.6 million girls at risk of FGM by 2030, and that's coming from UNICEF. Stories above, we have PDP APC fights over alleged 22.5 billion naira vote buying fund. The writer says APC plotting to swap 22.5 billion naira for vote buying. That's coming from PDP. Blames two Northwest governors as arrowheads. Alert security forces account for $2 billion arms fund. APC PCC challenge PDP, says PDP is a party of looters. Casino killing, death toll rises to 100, more residents still missing. Yobe North, Supreme Court restores Lawan as APC Senate candidate. You can see that story on page 13. Madu in court as alleged organ harvesting trial commences. Rescuers walk through night after Turkey Syria quake kills 3,000. All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with Naira swap. Court restrains Buhari CBN on February 10th deadline. The writer says that three APC governors sue federal government over Naira scarcity. Obaseki backs cashless policy. Protesters accuse banks of hoarding selling Naira notes to politicians for vote buying. 14 political parties threaten to boycott election if Naira redesigned cash withdrawal policies are cancelled. Nasima, CBN should have introduced 5,000 Naira notes for 5,000 Naira notes, not redesign Naira. Lawan in, Machina out, Supreme Court decision splits lawyers. Mbaka spitfire over Kanu, Naira redesign, fuel scarcity. Stories above, we have Pastor Wale Paul Adefarasi lose mother at 98. You can see that story on page 3. Again, court commits EFCC boss Bawa to prison for contempt. You can see that on page 3 still. NIPC moves to improve FDIs, reduces Nigeria's appetite for loan. Katsina attack, death toll may exceed 100 as government urges residents to confront terrorists. All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with governors ask Supreme Court to hold CBN's Naira swap deadline. The writer says Kaduna, Kogi, Zamfara states sue federal government. 4 political parties get high court injunction to block extension. EFCC arrests the bank officials with 29 million naira new notes. 3,500 killed in Turkey Syria earthquake. Buhari world leaders mourn. Katsina, Buhari seeks 2 million votes for Tinubu. Terrorists will be defeated, says APC candidate. Stories above. Trial of Madu, wife, child, doctor begins. Why NLC opted for consensus to pick leader. Education is the greatest weapon against poverty. Lastly, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, we have Emefiele's Naira redesign dance and general election. That's come from analysis. On the Punch newspaper, we have new Naira. Governors, parties begin legal battle over CBN's deadline. Rider says El-Rufai, Matawali, Yahya Bello sues federal government, demands extension. Court backs parties, stop CBN, Buhari from shifting deadline. EFCC nabs Abuja bank manager holding 29 million naira notes. You can see a photo story showing as the world mourns as earthquake kills over 2,700 in Turkey, Syria. Man arraigned for burning wife, brother-in-law to death. Thugs disrupt the Rivers APC rally, destroys vehicles. 613 billion naira sukuk loan spent on roads, bridges. That's come from the federal government. Stories above. We will hunt down 16 Nigerian killers in Burkina Faso. That's come from Buhari. Court stops Lagos National Airport concession. Autumn Shon's article campaign. Ayu slams governor. Lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Lawan's Supreme Court victory, daylight robbery. That's coming from Machina's camp. And that's all we can take on the front pages of the papers this morning. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. Joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Illustrated Today, Ikeja Today, and Lekki Today. Good morning, sir. It's good to have you join me this morning.
Good morning, Precious. Good
Do you have
morning to all our
cash?
viewers. I'm cashless.
All right, so let's delve in. Of course, we're talking about naira notes, and it's been really hard, tough times for Nigerians. And a high court of the FTT has issued an order restraining President Muhammad Buhari and the CBN from extending the February 10th deadline for the use of the old banknotes. What's your take on this one?
It's okay for them to not extend the deadline, provided they put in measures in place within the next 4 days that will alleviate this problem. I think, of course, the simplest thing to have done was to just go and print more notes, because our understanding was that they withdrew close to 2 trillion in the old notes that came back into the banking system, but they only put out 300 billion. The gap is too wide. That 300 billion is simply not enough. It's part of the fact that what they're trying to do is honorable. It's a good thing, but the implementation has been poor. First of all, 300 billion is too infinitesimal a quantity to go around 200 million people, in spite of the fact that you're trying to reduce our reliance on cash. Perhaps if they took in 1.8 trillion, perhaps they should have printed about 1 trillion. And then as we continue to do economic activities on a daily basis, they could have been withdrawing that 1 trillion slowly. But to just do a knee-jerk overnight reaction, go from 2 trillion in circulation to 300 billion, it can never be enough. So all these problems we're seeing now, I don't foresee them abating anytime soon. Even the 7 days the president asked us to give him, the only thing he can do to improve the situation is to tell the mint to print more. Meanwhile, my understanding is that because they insisted that the currency must be printed locally, the mint doesn't have the capacity, the printing capacity, to put out many, many more notes in such a short time. So really, that notion of 7 days to fix a problem might be a bit short. But going back to your original question, a court has said they shouldn't extend the deadline any further. I was one of those who said in the beginning that once you've picked a date, stick to it, don't keep shifting. Reason is, no matter how long you give Nigerians, there will be some of us who will still wait till the last minute. So even the extension they gave us of 10 days, there will still be some people who will still complain that it's not long enough. So I think, yes, pick a date. But the problem was they picked a date that was too short. They gave us, I think, 2 months or 2.5 months to change all our money. Maybe they should have done 6 months. Maybe they should have done a year. But I believe that once you pick the date, you should stick with it. So February 10, everything ends. But the issue is, between now and February 10, what measures is the government going to implement that will make things a bit easier? So they've got a court judgment now that says they can't extend beyond February 10. But does this mean we will continue to suffer after February 10 and still have queues looking for money everywhere, looking for new notes? Or does it mean that government has something it plans to do between now and February 10 that will make these things easier?
We've heard of some banks actually sabotaging government monetary policy. Just recently in the papers we have that EFCC just arrested a bank manager that was holding about 29 million naira cash. How do you react to this?
Without a doubt, there's been some sabotage in the process, even though maybe the planning and the implementation was poor, but it's been exacerbated by the fact that there has been sabotage involved. Of course, there are politicians. Somebody said yesterday that there's no presidential candidate who will pick up the phone and call any bank and say, I need $1 billion in cash, and they won't give it to him. That they will find a way from the meager allocation that's given to them, they will find a way to supply that money. In addition to them giving it to the favored few, then they are also selling it to POS operators, they're selling it to the hawkers. So, but some individuals, I'm not saying it's a systemic bank objective or it's a systemic bank exercise, but some individuals within the various banks have seen an opportunity to make swift money, brisk money that is risk-free, and they trying to capitalize on that opportunity, take advantage of it to make some quick money. So instead of making the money available, I'm sure you saw the video yesterday where they had the old notes in the vault and then they covered it with the old notes in the front to look like they didn't have any old notes left. And the excuse the guy gave was, well, they only gave us 29 million, and if we put it all out at once, we'll be finished. So we're only going to be giving it small by small. That's why we put it in the vault. So, but yes, without a doubt, the whole process has been compromised, both all the way from the CBN, all the way through the individual banks to the political players, who, of course, have a vested interest in getting the new notes in the run-up to the election.
Also, according to reports, we have about 14 of the 18 registered political parties participating in the elections have threatened to withdraw their participation from the election if the federal government cancels or suspends the cash withdrawal limit. What's your take on this?
Those 14 parties, they're all very small splinter parties who have